It's Spoilerin time, ladies and gentlemen. Today on the Spoilerin time, we are going to spoil episode 9, season 4 of The Shield. We are going to spoil episode 8 of Marco Polo. Roberto Villegas is still around. He's going to join us to talk about the 2 episodes of Hacking the System from last week. Woo! But to kick off the show, Brian Brushwood, we are going to spoil the pilot episode of the Amazon original Mad Dogs. How are we going to approach this, Brian?
You know what? Let's just cut right to the quick. I watched Mad Dogs last night, and I was so pumped about it. Of course, Mad Dogs co-written by Sean Ryan of the Shield fame and starring a friend of the show, Romany Malco. And I texted Romany like, holy crap, Mad Dogs, holy crap, Mad Dogs. And of all the shows, I was so excited that I immediately went and filled out the survey and gave it all like top marks, please make this a series. And as we were doing Cordkillers, I get a text from Romany saying like, hey man, if you ever need me to hop on Skype, I'll join you. That'd be great. And I was like, well, we're going to review it in like 5 minutes. And so because he's a hero and a rock star, joining us live on the line, star of the Amazon original Mad Dogs, Romany Malco, thank you so much for making it, man.
Man, thank you for having me, dude, as usual. We're a team. We're actually a team. So, yeah. And thank you for having me on your show as well.
So, normally, this will be kind of awkward in that we're going to review and gush. Unless you hated it, Tom. Did you hate it?
No, actually, what's interesting to me about this is it started off just from the brief description I saw and from that opening scene with them running through the field. I thought, okay, I get it. It's going to be like a buddy dramedy, maybe like a little bit like The Hangover. And then I was led down a garden path with the introduction in the airport. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I think I know where this is going. I think I know. And then all of a sudden, no, I do not know where this is going. And then the gunshot happens. And then you jerks leave me waiting for Amazon to greenlight this so I can find out what happens next. But I was left on the edge of my seat.
Well, and this is the ballsy thing about it. We see a lot of people, with a pilot, you want to try to make it self-contained. There's zero pretense about making this a self-contained episode of anything. Like, if this is all this ever is, this will be like the most agonizing tease of a first episode ever for a show that doesn't get picked up, because it starts with a scene that's clearly the end of some kind of journey. It sets up a 48-hour window. It does start off feeling a little bit like Entourage with like, they're all getting together, these guys, these wacky characters. And then it takes that dark turn and doesn't resolve it. Oh my God, that scene, the murder scene, is haunting in its cartoonish creepiness. The awkward gait of the, it didn't occur to me that the size of the actor was a little bit off until I watched them kind of, almost waddling away. The movement seemed almost childlike, which made me wonder if it was a child inside. And I'm sure these are all things I'm supposed to be wondering. It's visually gorgeous, and the characters are gorgeous, and my God, and forgive me, I've forgotten all the characters' names, Romany, but when the one dude brings home the smoking hot chip from the club, that girl had unbelievable presence. Like Bonnie and I were in agreement that if she walked into the room, both of us would just be our jaws would drop, her poise. I mean, she was stunning. The way she held herself, the way she comported herself, the way she looked was amazing. It was an awesome moment.
She's a model and an actress. Her name's Jodie Smith. Yeah, she's a hottie. She is a hottie. Really
so how much can you talk to us about like the discovery of when you got? I assume that you got the script at some point. And there was something about it that attracted you to the role, or.
Yeah, you and I have talked about this. I'm not crazy about about working in the network field, because there's just a lot of politics involved. You're a very creative person being hired for your creativity, but once you sign on to like these network shows, you're asked to relinquish your creative choices and begin to make political choices. And as a result of that, you can become quite miserable, suppressing your creativity if you're a true creative, and I am. And so I've been just hoping that someday a job like this would come along, and then out of the blue I get this call saying, Sean Ryan would like to meet with me about a project called Mad Dogs. And I went online. It was interesting because I knew that it was somewhat of a remake of a mini series or something, and I couldn't find anything, and I could find little clips here and there on YouTube. But once I got an idea of what the premise was and what it was truthfully about, it pretty much fell into the category of my dream job.
So, what did you've worked within network? I mean, I guess Weeds was cable network, which I don't know if it's more permissive than other environments. But how was the working in the completely independent Amazon original environment like for you? Was there a different vibe on set that you felt?
Oh, absolutely. It's more than just a vibe. It's more than just a vibe when you're working in on a project like Mad Dogs, because just straight out the gate, we're genre jumping. We went from what seemed like a bit of an action comedy to what eventually became kind of like a dark comedy to eventually becoming a serious drama and a thriller.
Yes.
All within 56 minutes.
Well, and I guess what I love about that is that's the same trick Sean Ryan pulled with the beginning of The Shield. You know, you start off feeling, oh, it's a procedural drama. These guys are the cowboys. Oh, wait, one of them murdered the other one. You know, it's man. How much? There are certainly ends. They've begun with the ending in mind for a lot of different things. Yeah. I'm curious how much they tell you. I'm not asking what they tell you, but if there are things they hold back or they say, like, it's important that you know that this is where we think it might be headed or whatever.
Have you seen any of the future episode scripts and stuff like that?
Well, listen, first of all, the show was created by a guy named Chris Paul. And let me tell you something. You're asking the same questions I asked, all right? But it was created by a guy named Chris Cole. He had written it. It was intended to be a mini series, but it was so well received that it ended up going on for several seasons, for like 4 seasons. And was
this in a different country? I guess
in the UK.
Okay.
Yeah. And because of the fact that the British and American sensibilities are so different, they decided that they would Amazon wanted to remake the show. So what Chris Cole had to do was, when he teamed up with Sean Ryan, was they had to determine what these 10 episodes were going to be, because they couldn't really mimic the British episode beyond a certain point, because it's difficult to honor the sensibility. And as each episode goes on, we stray further and further and further away from the British episode. So by the time we get to episode 5, we're telling a completely original story at that point. But from what I do know, there is so much more to it, and there's so many clues have already been planted, but there is so much more to it than just the task of returning a stolen item.
Yeah. This is not a boat caper series that we're watching.
So wait a minute. If they go get the boat and return it, that's not it. That's not the end. Everything's not okay. What?
I'm going to say that there are I don't know if you noticed, it was a bit male heavy, a lot of testosterone heavy in the beginning, and there are a lot of interesting female characters that now come into the show and create some serious challenges for your guys.
That moment when the female cop shows up and is so friendly and so accommodating and so like, oh, you don't know anything? Okay. And then off she goes. I feel like that is a thin veneer beneath an ocean of deepness in that character. And I would love to see that develop.
Same here. And also, another thing that's really awesome is being able to film on location. Like, we didn't get to necessarily film in Belize because the producer and directors found that the infrastructure wasn't there. And, it's always more beneficial to film in states and countries that have big rebate incentives, tax rebate incentives. But Puerto Rico is amazing. It is really a beautiful place. And while I was there, every single day I had off, I made it my duty to find another corner of that island or a neighboring island and experience it. And so just being able to film there with Sean Ryan, Mike Imperioli. Okay, so you're going to say you don't know who these people are. Sean Ryan is like in Dallas Buyers Club and everything else. Mike Imperioli from Sopranos. A guy named Ben Chaplin, who's from like is he from something called Thin Red Line, was it?
Oh yeah. They've been touting that association, yeah.
Yeah, these guys are incredibly talented, and and being on the location that we're on, it is a dream.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I totally bought it as Belize, and it wouldn't have surprised me if it was on location, but certainly, I mean, that's the reality, and that's one of the strange things happening in Hollywood right now. I remember sitting in the back seat listening to Bryan Cranston talk to Greg Grunberg about how originally Breaking Bad was meant to be set in Riverside, California, but they rewrote the whole story to take place in New Mexico because New Mexico was specifically offering tax incentives to get more film out there.
25-30%, of course, exactly. What they did do, though, is they went to Belize and they did a lot of filming of the streets and like the animals that are indigenous, to that to that part of Central America. And then they found ways to incorporate that into the show. So you'll see like the lizard running up the wall. That lizard only exists in Belize.
He's got
Is that a Belizean goat?
Can we verify, is it a union lizard or a non-union lizard? We need to know whether he's SAG or AFTRA.
Yo, this is more than a spoiler alert right here. This is like a...
All right. So we don't want to pump you for too much information, but as far as a review goes, I'll tell you what, I liked this every bit as much as I liked Man in the High Castle, and you guys know that I've been obsessed with the Man in the High Castle. I think it feels really big. It's exquisitely acted. The characters, I totally believe. I love the fact that it's such a trick of an opening, and it's unrepentant. It is an unrepentant first chapter that you could tell was shot with zero thought about, well, what happens if it doesn't get picked up? If it doesn't get picked up, guess what, jerks? You never get to find out who's inside that mask.
No, one of my favorite things about, again, I've been dying to get involved in the streaming business for a while. I've tried my hand at cable. I've tried my hand at network. And listen, I enjoy those forums for what they are. But nothing's more exciting than like feeling as though you're part of like the new frontier. Not only that, there's, like I said, the creative freedom, but then people get to come on there and be like cowboys and they do their craft with no apology whatsoever. It's not necessarily what I would consider, a gathering of humble participants. Like, people are seriously badasses and show up to be the baddest they can be because for once they're in a situation where the bureaucracy they're not handcuffed by bureaucracy, and they're not being asked to make political choices. They're being asked to be as creative as they possibly can be. So Charles McDougall, who directed this thing, he really put his foot in it. I mean, it looks like a movie.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm going to say this, and whatever, I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble for this, but where it may lag at times in pacing or whatever, because we're still feeling it out, it's a pilot, he makes up for it in visuals, and he makes up for it in the element of surprise. And then, I mean, what we ended up creating was something that you either really, really love or really, really hate.
I'd be interested to even talk to someone who hated it. Tom, do you want to weigh in on your kind of review side of things?
Just to add to what I said earlier, one of the things that I loved was what you're saying, Ramani, is the fact that it's gorgeous. You just enjoy watching it. Like, you could watch it again with the sound off and enjoy it. Just, it's beautifully shot. But then if you turn the sound off, you're going to miss one of the things that I enjoyed the most was the way from the beginning that something's off. But you're very much in the position of you four of thinking like, oh, but it can't be that bad, right? Like, we're all friends. And that slow, it's not a slow boil, but that slow way that the main character just hammers away, especially like, I feel like your character got the brunt of his anger, of course, until the table scene when everybody got the brunt. But you could tell he's pulling his punches early, and he's got an axe to grind with all four of you. And then to not be, you're like, okay, so it's going to be building up to him grinding those axes. No, it's not, right? All of a sudden, those four people, you've now been set up to know their weaknesses is what that's served for. And that just blew me away. I love taking that risk to say like, all right, we're not going to rely on that character to spoon feed you this. You're going to have to watch these guys sink or swim. It was really fun.
Oh, what was an awesome irony to me was as you got more and more shots of these wide shots of the boats out in the ocean and the beautiful scenery, the wider the shots are, the more claustrophobic everything felt, because as you start to understand, like, hey guys, you're getting farther and farther from civilization, and you are more and more not in control of what's happening here. That and I don't know, just it felt very claustrophobic near the end for me.
No, those are all good points, man, and It's true. And, you know, to what Tom was saying, when we were sitting on that boat filming that scene, I was sitting there going, I was literally thinking, what the hell was Milo thinking? And no, really.
Yes.
Yeah, right. I'm like, you know what? He probably thought he's the one who hasn't developed. So he's probably thinking that we're still, you know, his cronies from college, and we're going to come out there and be who we were when we were, you know, 20 years old. And he's the one who's still trapped in that time warp despite looking so much more successful than we are. And what actually happens is that we come out there and we've all kind of moved on with our lives and come to an acceptance of what things were. I'm sitting on the boat thinking this, Tom, I'm dead serious, and going, we've probably disappointed him by not being the guys he was expecting to show up. You know, it's like when someone gets hooked on crack, 2 years flies by so quick, they come back to pick up their order of fish, and they're like,
yeah, wait, is that you? Wait, what?
There's no fish anymore, brother. Yeah.
This is real estate. We don't do fish here, bro. You know?
Yeah.
And that was kind of like, that's him. He, you know, I feel as though he was trapped in a time warp. And I think that also I've noticed, you know, even in my own family, that people will move further and further outside of civilization to avoid accountability. And there was a little bit of that as well. And so you just remind, you know, both of you actually reminded me of what started coming to mind as we were sitting on that boat and I was trying to figure out what he was thinking.
Well, I've said this before, like, you know, to me, questions, for good storytelling, questions are always better than answers. And I always use the example of Star Wars versus the prequels. The original Star Wars, like, what's this world with 2 planets or with 2 suns? What's a moisture farmer do? You're just riddled with questions. And definitely by the end of Mad Dogs, I'm like, you know, what is this scene with the war paint at the end? You know, what is it that their friend was into? You know, you think it might be drugs. What was in the package? You know, what's with this animosity? You know, just nothing but questions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that, you know, a lot of people see Steve Zahn, myself, Mike Imperioli, and they just automatically assume that they're going to get, you know, some kind of hangover. I would liken this more to Hangover meets Deliverance.
Yeah.
Yes, I believe it, man.
No, I definitely liked the Apocalypse Now allusions and the feeling, and it was one of the points where I felt like, oh, okay, they're signaling me here. I need to pay attention to this. Like, all is not what it seems.
No, yeah, totally. No, yeah, exactly. You know what? I actually am happy to hear you guys ask the questions that you're asking, because it lets me know that there really is an audience. I mean, aside from the fact that the reviews have been incredible, it lets me know that people are watching it and actually, getting it beyond just, the surface level of entertainment. So, who knows? This could potentially go on to be something like Lost, because Lost was one of those shows that, it had me going back in episodes before I would go forward, because I wanted to see what clues I might have missed,
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. I know that you're very gracious with your time. But what can people do to support the show? Obviously, I assume it matters to go fill out the survey at Amazon.com/pilots, or is that what it is?
Pilot season.
Well, you can look, if you're following me on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, I'm going to shove it in your face. So,
all right. So what should people follow you on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook?
Twitter is Romany Malco, and Instagram is it's Romany Malco, but Facebook is Romany Malco.
I think we can make that work. ROMANY.
Yeah, Romany Romany Malco. Got it.
Nice. But if you go to bit.ly/Mad Dogs Pilot, it will pop right up. bit.ly/Mad Dogs Pilot.
Perfect.
It'll pop right up. And, there are surveys and all kinds of things that you can take. Please tweet me. Let me know that you've seen it. I've got more for you to do after you've seen it. I'm going to send you links to how you can, take, vote on IMDb and take the review on Amazon and write a review on Amazon. I've got all kinds of stuff for you to do. And then I just want to say thank you. So yeah, bit.ly/Mad Dogs Pilot.
All right. That's not working for me, but we'll find out the right one.
Wait.
It's got to be capitalized?
Yeah,
Capital.
casing.
There we go.
Yeah,
Capital
Bitly
M.
is case sensitive. That always trips me up.
Okay, so capital MAD, capital DOGS.
Right. Capital M. Oh shit! I got.
Yeah, it's camel casing for those who are a bit techie.
Okay, there we go. So you got to capitalize mad and dogs and pilot, and it does work. It'll get you straight there.
Yes, I'm going to fix that. I didn't realize that was case sensitive. And listen to this, guys. Seriously, you know, you can just do a search. Just say Mad Dogs 2015. Do that on IMDb, and it'll come right up. And then there's a watch for free link below. There's no money to watch it. It's all free. These Amazon pilots are all free. I'd actually recommend, checking out a few of them.
And by the way, before we let you go, I do want to read my text to you last night at 10 p.m. was, "Holy S, Romney, I finally caught time to watch Mad Dogs. Holy S, man, amazing." And Romney's response, the first thing he said was, "Haha, thank you. You mind telling the Diamond Club how dope it is?" So his first thought was of you guys at home.
Yeah.
There it is. All right. Well, hey, thanks so much. We're going to drop you off now, Romney. We'll get you back for some other time. And thanks so much for calling in.
Tom, I appreciate it. Brian, I appreciate it. I'm going through your catalog now, Tom, so don't hesitate. Brian, you my dude. Thank you guys. I'm following you. Keep me posted. Peace.
You got it, boss. Take
Thanks
care,
so
man.
much, Romney.
Good
Appreciate
seeing
it.
you. Romney Malco, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, woo.
What a class act. What a great guy.
Seriously, generous to just like pop on out of nowhere like that. That's awesome.
And I don't even think he knew we were reviewing it. He just texted me, just happened during Cordkillers, like, "Hey, if you need me for anything, I'll just hop on." That was very cool.
I have yet to watch any of the Amazon pilots yet. That's now piqued my interest on one of them, because a lot of them hadn't piqued my interest yet. But just hearing Romney's part of one of them now, that now piques my interest.
I'll tell you what,
more.
man. I didn't want to say it in front of him because I didn't want to gush. But man, he acts the hell out of that thing, man. Like, I mean, it's like it's some movie level acting. I'm just like, yeah. It's great.
Yeah, he is actually the character. I felt a little weird saying this in front of him too. Like, he's the character I feel the baddest for.
Yeah.
Like, there's the guy who's the whipping boy. Like, they have all the tropes of a buddy group. But he's the one that gets the brunt earliest of like, yeah, that guy. And I'm like, he's a single father and you're picking on him.
Well, and plus also, I think it's not insignificant that he's the only black person in that group of friends. He comes from a different cultural background, or I don't know about cultural, but your racial background. But it's like that, it just underscores it. So as they tease him, it just makes it more awkward to watch. It's loving it.
All right, let's talk about hacking the system real quick. Brian, keep quiet. Roberto Villegas.
Yes.
Thumbs up, thumbs down on the latest 2 episodes of Hacking the System, which were
travel
hacks
let's
crime
start
hacks,
it
right?
neutral. Let's make.
Oh no!
Oh, it's going down.
I didn't want to make you squirm that much, Brian. No, I enjoyed it. It's interesting because, like, when I first saw like the original Hacking the Systems, like when the special was out there and everything else, the one comment I told Brian was that, like, I get so much of I get almost an unfettered access to the Brian Brushwood stream, not just in personal life, but in work and everything else. And so it's really cool kind of seeing a lot of other people who are seeing that access. Like when you watch Twitter and see everyone hacking the system, just like, oh, wow, I guess they're talking about the pineapple now. People are like, oh, my God, all this kind of hacking stuff and everything else. I definitely did not know anything of the travel stuff. That was like completely new and exciting to me. I had no idea about some of those things, and some of them might even use. I have a trip coming up pretty soon. I might actually try to use some of them this time, dude. Especially scamming to a potential,
upgrade.
Yeah.
Well, and that was one thing we had to play coy on was we couldn't directly we sketched around it.
Yeah.
But didn't flatly say it. Like, the side benefit of trying to get a first class upgrade is you have a legitimate reason to walk right up to where there's no line at the first class.
That's exactly
desk.
what it was. I like that idea of just like, hi, I'm thinking of upgrading. Ooh, that's too expensive. You know what? I'm just stick with the normal one and then move my merry way. If nothing more, than to already go through the check-in procedure.
Yeah.
That was like, I'm going to use that next trip. Like, I'm not even gonna lie, because that was such a crazy.
My dad taught me the rolling trick of the packing, by the way, because that was a Navy thing that he learned. He picked it up in the Navy in the 50s. So as soon as you brought that up, I'm like, oh yeah, this is gonna be huge.
Yeah.
Like I've been doing that since he taught me that in the 80s, and it makes a huge difference unpacking your clothes. Huge.
Well, I think that's the funny part, because everything moves so quickly. It's everyone will have some part of the show that they'll think is obvious or they've already known or whatever.
Right.
But even then, they don't seem to mind it because they know that a new thing for them is only 30 seconds.
Well, because like
away.
a lot of that happened on one of your first episodes, the whole digital security side for me, working in network security and things like that. A lot of those tips and tricks, like, yeah, I know all of these. These all make sense.
Yeah, but I didn't mind hearing it again.
No,
I was
no,
like,
neither did I.
Right. Like that's a cool hack. I forget to tell people that.
No,
like,
neither did I.
It was actually
I totally enjoyed
like,
seeing that.
awesome to see it on TV. Like, oh yeah, that's my dad's trick. That's great. It's like validating.
Yeah, no, exactly. Especially with that one for me, because it's like, oh yeah, I know this, but I know that a lot of people don't know this. I know a lot of this is going to be new information to them, specifically here, and it was really cool seeing that presented there, and even some of the travel stuff. And then I didn't know half. I think it was your second episode where it was sort of like survive 24 hours in your house. Like half of that, I'm like, I should keep that in mind too.
Because Brian,
sure.
I know if I was you, I would be thinking about these as like, okay, I put this out there. Do people like it? Do people buy it? Do people already know it and they don't think it's that impressive? But the other side of it is you are also the person telling people like, these are the good hacks.
Yeah.
These are now the canon.
Well, these are
of hacks.
curated for sure. This has gone through a feed of somebody that already does this for his own internet stuff and now is doing this for television, and this has already been tried and true and tested. And because it's coming from this guy here, it has been curated, it has been figured out. We've weeded out the bad, weeded out the good, and included together. And plus, anytime you get to show, spray something in Jason Murphy's eyes or shock him, I'm always for that because it's Jason Murphy.
Yeah, by the way, Jason Murphy will be joining us in about an hour for the live watch party. Thank you for all the kind words, guys. It's I feel like Romany Malco right now, listening to two people gush about my show.
It's a really good show. I mean, people are going to say, oh, Tom, you're saying that because you like Brian, and that's okay. We understand that. And that's where it starts. Me watching the show and wanting to like it for sure. But then it goes beyond that. Like, you could take Brian out of that show, and I would be very sad for Brian, but it'd be a really good show. Like you have put together a valuable piece of content.
You can't take
Brian.
Jason
You
Murphy out of the show. Jason Murphy is actually, I'm just kidding. You're both pretty inseparable.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. Well, hey, man, I guess let's talk about Marco Polo. Man, we ran long on that first segment. You want to just do a fast version?
I don't have much to say about Marco Polo episode 8, except what I told you on the phone the other day, which was I was really excited about this episode, thinking like, hey, very little Marco Polo, really enjoying it, until we got to the part where there was more Marco Polo. But honestly, like, I almost feel like they should have left it as a cliffhanger. Whether Marco was going to get in trouble or not is the only thing I can take away from this episode.
Well, I think they did still. I think there's two issues, like what do we do? And the answer is we retreat. But then there's the other question of what do we do with Marco? And I will say this, the character Marco Polo is just as beige as hell. There's nothing there. However, that dude does act the hell out of it. I mean, like you
it's not
feel
the actor's fault. Absolutely.
Yeah. The actor does a great job. You feel his terror. You feel his paranoia. I will say this. This has a comparable budget to a season of Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones would not lead up to a big epic battle and then cut to a random narrator and show a painting of a battle and then, just talk about how it turned out to be a trap for 15 seconds and then snap back to a beautiful set for some more, heavy dialogue.
Yeah. Kind of knew it was a trap, though. Kind of knew. I mean, with all that Kublai bluster in the camp to the Chancellor, you knew it wasn't going to go well, especially because we have 2 more episodes left. So that part, I am intrigued enough to see, like, how do we bring down the Chancellor? That's got to happen, right?
Yeah.
We got to see his fall. That's the only thing left for me to hope for.
Yes, exactly. I finally feel like I got a grip on who all the characters are and what all their motivations are. And, there's a significant moment. I'll tell you what, that was a pregnant moment watching them parlay where it's the Chancellor and Kublai just sitting there staring at each other. This was the best episode I've seen so far. Second best, episode 7. I'm certainly,
yeah.
I mean, here's the weird part. I will howl about how frustratingly long it took to get to this point, but at this point, I really have watched enough, and I am in, and I'll watch the next 2 episodes gladly. In fact, I think we might end up just watching both of them back to back just to round it out, and we'll probably enjoy them a whole lot because we have the sunk cost of how clumsily we got here, but we are here now.
I'm interested in the Blue Princess as well. You're right. I'm invested in more characters now.
Yeah.
And very sad about her bodyguard getting stabbed.
Yeah.
Let's finish up with The Shield, episode 8, season 4, Cutthroat. This is the one where Vic turns bad again. So now we're back on Vic saying, you know what? I was out of the game for a while, but now I'm back. It's a little less motivated than I would like it to be. It's sort of like, well, I guess I kind of have to do this, and I'm kind of a little pissed at Monica Rawlings and whatnot. It's really weird to see Acevedo put on his reserve uniform and just walk around like an officer. But overall, very compelling storyline with the officers disappearing. Not just officer violence, but disappearing and not knowing where they are, what happened to them. At the same time, the triangle of Vic trying to save Antoine so that he can save Shane, so that he can actually save his career, is pretty interesting as well.
This is where it starts to feel more and more and more like a chess game to me, because like when you play a good game of chess, you're thinking about all the possibilities, and you're like, no, I have to protect that pawn because that pawn is protecting that rook, which is threatening that queen, which is blah blah blah, you know, and you start to see that those consequences 3 or 4 different layers out.
Yeah, and we even get Lem, softening up on Shane a little. Maybe the old band will get back together after all. Who knows?
I'm sure they all end up holding hands. I bet it ends
and Wagon Wims had a good episode again. There's sort of the procedural element at this point in the series.
Yeah.
Like, they're a really good procedural on their own. I want to see that spin-off buddy comedy Wagon Wims show.
Yeah. Actually, you're right. I never really thought about it, but it is a little slice of kind of Law and Order just thrown into the patchwork.
And it fits. It doesn't stick out, and it's really well done. So I like it. And that is it for Spoilerin time. Roberto Villegas, thanks, man.
Not a problem. Always a pleasure to be here.
Where can people find you again? CosmicRadio.com?
Just head over to CosmicRadio.tv or follow me on Twitter at Vincent404.
Vincent404. And that is it for Spoilerin time. You'll find us here on Cordkillers.com. We'll talk to you next time.
On a different feed.
Oh.
Actually,
in 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Soon.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.